Marta's morning began as usual. The sun was gently breaking through the curtains, and the aroma of coffee filled her small but cozy kitchen. She sat down at her favorite wooden table, picked up her phone, and opened the banking app. Instead of the usual numbers, however, the screen displayed an alarming reality. Her account balance was zero. At first, she thought it was an app error. Reassuring herself, Marta refreshed the page several times, but the numbers remained the same. Maybe it's a technical glitch, she whispered to herself, feeling her heart start to beat faster. Panicked, Marta calls the bank, her hand shaking as she dials. The operator explains in a calming voice that all funds have been withdrawn from the account over the past 3 months due to a series of investment transactions. Marta feels her head spinning. "I didn't make any investments," she screams into the phone. Her voice breaks with excitement. The operator promises to check and suggests that she contact the branch for more details. Anella doubts begin to overwhelm her mind. Could she have forgotten about any transactions, or was it someone close to her who abused her trust? Her heart tells her one thing, but her mind refuses to accept reality. A few hours later, Marta receives a call from her bank manager. "Yes, Marta, we've reviewed the records and found that the transactions were made through your personal account access. Who of you should check who might have access to your information?" The man on the other end of the phone says. Martha suddenly remembers how a few months ago, her best friend Carol offered to help her manage money more effectively. They were sitting at the computer together when Carol assured her that new investment funds were a great way to grow her savings. No way, Martha thought, feeling a chill run down her spine. She quickly reviews all the conversations she's had with Carol recently. Something doesn't add up. At the end of the day, Martha sits in her living room, holding a cup of unfinished coffee. Her thoughts are torn between the desire to call Carol and the fear of hearing her worst fears confirmed. If it is her, what will I do? Will I be able to forgive her? And if I'm wrong, how can I keep my friendship after such accusations? Martha realizes that the road to the truth is difficult, and this is just the beginning. Martha and Carol met when they were 16 years old. In a small town where everyone knew each other, their connection became something unique. Martha was a quiet dreamer who loved to read books and spend hours painting by the river. Carol, on the other hand, was a bright, confident girl who always found a way to be the center of attention. Their first conversations began in the library when Carol asked for help choosing a book. Do you really think this story about pirates is worth reading?" she asked with a smile. Martha shrugged her shoulders shyly and replied, "It's my favorite book." And so began their friendship, which quickly grew into something deeper. During their student years, they became inseparable. They moved to a big city together, rented a small apartment, and supported each other in everything. Martha worked as a waitress to pay for her art courses, and Carol, always full of ideas, started a career in marketing. "You're like my sister," Carol often said. She was the one who pushed Martha to take risks, try new things, and step out of her comfort zone. It was Carol who convinced Martha to participate in her first art exhibition, which brought her first major success. But not everything was so perfect. Carol always had one weakness. She couldn't resist the temptation of quick success. This often led her to make risky decisions. Martha, trusting her friend, never doubted her intentions. When Martha lost her mother, it was Carol who became her support. She arrived in the middle of the night, brought warm soup, and stayed by her side. "You are not alone," she said, hugging her friend tightly. Those words became a source of strength for Martha. Later, when Carol faced problems in her marriage, Martha was the one who helped her move to a new home. They have always been supportive of each other, despite the storms of life. Recently, however, Martha had noticed a change in Carol's behavior. She became more secretive, often talking about new opportunities and asking for money to borrow, promising a quick return. "You and I have always been a team," Carol would say when she asked me to sign documents for one of her ideas. Martha always signed without reading the fine print, because who could betray her more than the person closest to her? Martha sat at her desk, remembering all these moments. Her heart was breaking at the thought that Carol could have used her. But could a friend who was there for her in the most difficult moments of her life really do that? The audience is left with the question, was their friendship real, or was it all part of a plan? Over the past few months, Carol had been acting very differently. Martha noticed that her friend Ganby to avoid talking about her finances, even though they used to spend hours discussing everything from future plans to small purchases. I need to take care of something, Carol said when Martha invited her to dinner. It was the third time she had canceled their plans at the last minute. Carol had always shared her worries before, but now her answers were short and vague. Everything is fine, don't worry, she often said, avoiding eye contact. One day, while they were sitting in a cafe, Carol received a call. She abruptly got up from the table and went outside to answer it. Martha couldn't help but notice her tense appearance when she returned. Who was that? Asked Martha. Just work-related questions, Carol replied, shrugging her shoulders. But her hands were nervously clutching her coffee cup. Even more suspicious was the fact that Carol now always kept her phone with the screen facing down, and when she received a message, she was quick to close it. Martha also began to notice that Carol often talked about money. Shy mentioned some small investment that would pay off soon. Once she even asked Martha to give her a small loan. Magua, it's just temporary. I'll pay it back in a month, Carol assured her, but Martha noticed that she sounded a little unsure. One day, when Martha decided to put her papers in order, she came across a check she had signed for Carol a few months earlier. It was for an amount that exceeded the usual help her friend had allegedly asked for. Why didn't I notice this before? Thought Martha. She tried to recall the circumstances under which she had signed the document, but only Carol's words came to mind. It's nothing, just for the bank. Martha began to suspect that Carol was hiding something, but she didn't want to believe that her closest friend could betray her trust. She tried to calm herself down, but the feeling of anxiety only increased. Maybe I'm just exaggerating, Martha thought, but the audience already realized that her doubts were justified. The one evening, Martha decided to go through her old papers, looking for receipts for her report. In her desk drawer, where she usually kept all her important papers, she came across an envelope with unfamiliar papers. At first she didn't pay attention, thinking it was just some forgotten documents. But when she opened the envelope, Martha saw several pages signed with her name. "What is this?" she whispered, feeling her heart begin to race. After carefully reviewing the documents, Martha realized that they were papers for a significant financial transaction. It stated that she had transferred access to her savings to another person. Her eyes rounded when she saw the naming Carol Anderson. "That's impossible." Martha's voice trembled. One of the documents had Martha's signature on it, but she knew for a fact that she had never signed anything like this. Her hand began to tremble as she realized she was a victim of fraud. "It's Carol. She set me up." Martha couldn't believe that her closest friend would do something like this. Snippets of conversations began to pop up in her mind, Carol's strange questions about finances, her requests for help, and the moments when Martha blindly trusted her friend. How could I have been so naive? The next day, Martha went to her bank with the documents she had found. She explained the situation and asked to check the records. The bank manager carefully examined the papers and confirmed Martha's worst fears. These documents were indeed used to transfer funds," he said. "The signature was yours, but if you are sure you didn't sign it, we can open an investigation." Martha could barely hold back her tears. She felt her world begin to crumble. Back at home, Martha sat in silence, clutching her papers. She tried to find an explanation, but none of them seemed convincing enough. Why her? I trusted her more than myself," Martha whispered. The memories of their friendship, all the years they had spent together, now seemed like a deception. Martha hesitated for a long time before calling Carol. Her hands were shaking and her heart was pounding as if warning of an imminent storm. Finally, she dialed the number. "Carol, we need to talk. I need answers," Martha said, trying to keep her voice steady. Of course. Come over," Carol replied without a shadow of concern. When Martha arrived at Carol's house, she was greeted with a smile and her usual warm tone. But this time, everything seemed fake. Found these documents," Martha began, pulling the papers out of her bag, her voice cold. "Your signature and my money are here. Did you know about this?" Carol froze for a moment, but quickly regained her composure. Martha, you're wrong. I would never do anything to hurt you," she said, avoiding direct eye contact. But Martha noticed Carol flinch slightly. "Don't lie to me! I was at the bank, and they confirmed your involvement." Carol, realizing that lying wouldn't anymore, tried to change the subject. "Listen, Martha, it wasn't like you think. I was having difficulties. I had no choice. No choice." Martha's voice grew louder. You stole all my savings. I trusted you like a sister, and you betrayed me for money." Carol tried to defend herself. "You will never understand what I was going through. I was in debt, and the bank could have taken my house. It was the only way out." Martha could not believe her ears. "The only way out? What about me? How am I supposed to live now? You've ruined my life." Tears streamed down her face, but they were tears of anger, not weakness. Carol tried to touch Martha's hand, but she pulled it away. "Martha, I'm really sorry. I wanted to return the money, but things got out of hand." "Sorry? Your sorry is not enough. How can you sleep at night knowing that you left me with nothing?" Martha took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. "I don't know if I will ever be able to forgive you, but I know one thing, I won't let you get away with it." What are you going to do?" asked Carol, her voice full of anxiety. Martha looked her straight in the eye. "You will find out, and I will make sure that justice is done." Martha walks out of Carol's house, leaving her friend in shock. Her face reflects a mixture of determination and pain. Martha woke up to a call from an unknown number. On the other end was a man who introduced himself as Michael, an investigator for a private agency. "Martha, I'm working on a case that might be of interest to you. I have information about Carol," he said, sounding serious. Martha's heart sank. She decided to meet with Michael to find out more. At the meeting, Michael laid out some documents in front of Martha. These were bank statements and copies of contracts where Carol's name appeared. "It's not just your money, Martha. She's been defrauding other people for years," the investigator explained. Martha looked at documents in horror. "This is impossible." I thought she just made a mistake. "But this is a real scam," Michael nodded. "She used the trust of friends and family to access their money. You're not her first victim." Martha was stunned. How could she do this? She was my best friend. I trusted her like I trusted myself." Michael showed her another document. "This is a copy of her correspondence with other victims. She promised them quick investments, but instead she just spent the money on herself." Martha felt a wave of anger wash over her. She stood up from her chair, her face flushed. "I gave her everything. How could she stoop so low?" I tried to calm her down. "Martha, I understand your emotions, but it's important to act reasonably now. We can gather more evidence and go to the police." Martha took a deep breath and sat back down, her hands still shaking. What do I need to do?" "You need to give your consent to use this evidence in court, but it won't be easy. Carol will try to exonerate herself and possibly blame you," Michael explained. "I am ready." I can't let her ruin other people's lives like she did mine," Martha replied firmly. On the way home, Martha couldn't calm down. He thought about all the years of friendship, the laughter they had shared, and the betrayal that had destroyed everything. Should I have trusted her? How could I have been so naive? She asked herself. She opened her old photo album. In every picture, Carol was smiling next to her, but now that smile seemed like a mask. Martha knew she had a difficult choice to make. Was it worth the risk of exposing Carol to public scrutiny, or was it possible to get at least some of the money back? Martha sat at the kitchen table, holding a sheet of evidence in her hands. Her thoughts were circling around one question: forgive or fight. How can I forgive Carol after everything she's done? But is it worth it to involve myself in an endless fight? Her eyes fell on an old photograph. It showed her and Carol laughing during a trip to the sea. These memories evoked contradictory emotions: sadness for the lost friendship and anger for the betrayal. The phone rang. It was Jane, one of Martha's old friends. Martha, I heard what happened. How are you holding up?" Martha told her about her doubts. "I don't know if I have the strength to fight, but how can I let this go unpunished?" Jane thought about it and said, "You have to think about what is more important to you, peace and quiet or justice. But remember that Carol can do this to other people if you don't stop her." Martha went to bed, but she did not sleep. Her thoughts kept returning to the situation. She remembered Carol's words during their last confrontation. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Martha. It was the circumstances, not me." Or was Carol truly remorseful? Or was it just another manipulation? Martha decided to write down her thoughts on paper to see things more clearly. And on one side, she wrote down the benefits of forgiveness, and on the other side, the reasons to fight. The next morning, Michael called again. "Martha, I have some news. We've found a few more people who have been hurt by Carol's actions. If you decide to fight, they are ready to join you." This message was a turning point for Martha. She realized that her decision would affect not only her life, but also the lives of others. Martha gathered her friends and told them about her plans. "I decided to fight, not only for myself, but also for those she deceived. It won't be easy, but I can't let it go." However, there was still a touch of doubt in her voice. Was this really the right way to go? Should she forgive and move on? Martha stood in front of the empty room of her new home. She had sold her old house to start a new chapter in her life. A few boxes of basic necessities, an old rocking chair, and a photo from years past of her and Carol laughing together on the wall. "This is my new home," she whispered, trying to convince herself that everything would be okay. Martha began to gradually return to her normal life. She enrolled in the painting classes she had been dreaming about for years, and for the first time in a long time, she felt her heart was full of peace. One morning, Martha found a letter in her mailbox. The sender address was unknown, but the handwriting seemed familiar. Opening the envelope, she saw a letter from Carol. "Martha, I know there is no excuse for what I did. But I want you to know that I am sorry. My greed destroyed our friendship, and it will always be a burden on my conscience. I'm giving you back some of what I took. I hope it will help you start over at least a little. Carol." The envelope contained a check for a substantial sum. Martha looked at it for a long time, not knowing how to react. Should she accept the money, or was it just another manipulation? Martha decided that the check would remain on the table until she figured out what to do with it. She turned to her new friends from her art class to discuss the situation. "What would you do?" she asked. The opinions varied. Some advised her to accept the money, others thought it was a trap. But one of her friends said, "Martha, money is just a symbol. What matters is how you feel inside. If it helps you close this chapter, why not?" Martha decided to donate the money to charity. She donated to a foundation that helps victims of fraud. This act brought her a sense of relief and strength. "I am no longer a victim. I'm a person who is learning to live again," she said, speaking at a charity event where she shared her story. Martha was sitting in her rocking chair again, looking at the sunset. Her life was not perfect, but she felt she had made the right choice. But the question remained, had she forgiven Carol in her heart? And will she ever be able to trust people the way she used to? What would you do in Martha's place? Would you forgive the betrayal, or would you fight to the end? Friends, thank you for watching this story to the end. Your thoughts and comments are always inspiring. Write what you would do in such a situation. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories. See you soon!